All right, guys, today we're going to show you how to turn these walnut slabs into custom floating wine racks.
First off, we got our slabs laid flat to figure out where we're going to trim them down.
Yeah, if we debark both, trim one to size, and then try to square the other one up off of that as if they were on a wall so we could picture.
We then removed all the bark with a draw knife, which is probably the best way of getting it done. Plus, it provides some awesome ASMR slow-mo footage. With all our bark off, we started marking them out and putting our tracks out of work. These slabs ended up showing signs of internal stress as seen here. Sometimes a few different factors like case hardening or tension set can cause the kerf to pinch the blade, which can be fairly dangerous. We cut slowly, opening up the kerf a little bit at a time, and then use some wedges to complete the cuts. Once they were cut to size, one slab was able to fit through our planer, but the second one was too wide. It took a lot of sanding to get it as close to flat as possible. 2 out of 10, don't recommend.
We've got our slabs milled down, cleaned up, and now we're ready to start working on the frame for the back that's going to house our lighting and create the standoff so that these slabs are about 1.25 inches off the wall. And then we got to problem solve and figure out the exact spacing of all these pegs to make sure that all the bottles look central on each slab.
We milled up some rough walnut strips to build the custom frames, which also help hide the way we plan on mounting these slabs. The live edge shape of the slabs also means they won't be built as perfect rectangles. We wanted a uniform spacing around the edge, so there would be multiple angles at play when building these. You'll see what we're talking about shortly. Using our table saw, jointer, and planer, we managed to get these pieces milled up. With our frames ready to build, we moved on to tackling the wine bottle holders. We averaged out the centers of our slabs and ran a line that we could reference for aligning the standoffs, and then started marking the distances. Luckily, these bottle holders are from Richelieu, and they provided us the proper distances to make the bottles sit flat when mounted. We simply transferred those specs to a plywood jig for marking them all out. Because of the shape of the bottles, one peg has to be raised slightly higher than the other. This allows it to sit level when on the rack, making sure the cork stays wet. We did a mock-up, placing the standoffs in their positions, then started marking and drilling all the holes. We used our drill plunge to ensure everything stayed perfectly straight. Once we got all of them drilled completely through, we flipped them over to drill the clearance holes. For this, we used a Forstner bit slightly larger than the screw head. The drill plunge is handy for this since it has an adjustable depth stop. We finished off the holes, tops, and bottoms with a little roundover to break the edges. With all that figured out, we jumped back to the LED frames. We averaged out the inset and started making our pieces to cut. We ended up with almost a rhombus shape and cutting some of the joints at 5 or 7 degree angles. This was necessary to match the shape of the live edges. With both frames cut and figured out, we moved on to drilling dominoes. We have mini dominoes that work perfectly for this. Each corner received a domino, and we glued and assembled the frames. We left them in the clamps to fully dry. We gave all our pieces of sand and drilled some cable holes for the LEDs in our frames. We weren't entirely sure how the electricians planned to run the wires and power supplies, so we opted for 3 holes, 2 on the sides and 1 on the bottom. With the frames done, all we had left to do was drill and mount them to our slabs. We pre-drilled and countersunk some screw holes, all evenly spaced. Moving forward, all of our assemblies were ready for an oil finish. We used Rubio Monocoat Pure for this, making sure every side was coated, including all of the bolt clearance and wiring holes. The walnut slab shows some great characteristics and curling, also known as tiger stripes. We let the finish dry overnight and moved on to installing all of the standoffs. They use large truss head Allen screws that thread into the base of the standoff. Pretty straightforward. We then fastened the frames with the pre-drilled holes from earlier. Now that these are in the final stretch, we cut our wall mounts out of plywood. The plan was to hang them on a French cleat, which is a simple and effective way of hanging heavier fixtures. We measured our distances from the top of the slab and laid down some tape to mark where they would sit. It's a bit of an optical illusion since the frames aren't perfectly square, but we promise they're straight and square to the top edge. We pre-drilled, countersank, and attached them with wood screws. We didn't have to worry about installing the LEDs ourselves as the customer had that arranged for the installation. Here's how they turned out. The customer also included lighting on a dimmer switch, which is the perfect touch. They fit the space well and look great with a full display of wine bottles. If we owned a wine display like this at our shop, our projects might just get a little more, well, creative. Cheers, thanks for watching.